Hey, what's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you guys back to the Boombox Guru channel. I'm your host, LB, man. And before we get into this video, man, if my voice sounds a little bit funny, it's because I'm just now getting over a slight cold that I've had. So if it sounds funny, that's why. But to go into this video, man, we're gonna get right into it, man. Today we got another album review for you guys. So the album I want to talk about today is one of my favorite heavy metal albums of all time. It's also by one of my favorite heavy metal bands, and that is White Zombie with Le Sexorcisto Devil Music Volume 1, released in 1992, man. Hope you dig that cover right here. Here's the back cover. Everything like this, man. Yeah, man, so Le Sexorcisto, man, this was the third studio album. Sometimes I get that mixed up. It was the third studio album by White Zombie, but it was their first album on a major label, and it was also the album that catapulted them into being one of the biggest heavy metal bands of the 90s. Of course, you know, White Zombie didn't start out this way. They started out as like a post-punk, noise rock, New York City band. With their second album, Make Them Die Slowly, that's when they decided to transition into a metal band, although that record wasn't successful at that time. But in between there, they released the God of Thunder EP, which was their first release with guitarist Jay Noel Yuenger, which that's what really transformed their sound. It was actually, a lot of people don't give that EP credit, but it was actually one of the first groove metal releases before Pantera. A lot of people don't give that EP a lot of credit, but yeah, that EP helped to transform their sound. They actually set the stage for what you get on here, and they started to get a lot of attention from major labels. They eventually signed with Geffen in 1990, and they went into the studio in 91 and they started recording Le Sexorcisto, and this would prove to be a huge success for the band. It's also one of the early successes for Rob Zombie. This album right here is what set the stage for his later mega successful solo career, man. But so going into this album, man, I gotta tell you, for a long time I've been somebody that always said that Astro Creep 2000 was my favorite White Zombie album. I've said that for a long time, but I've been spending a lot of time with Le Sexorcisto the past few weeks, maybe month. I've been listening to it non-stop, and I gotta say that I think I've had a change of heart. I'm gonna go ahead and say that Le Sexorcisto is my favorite White Zombie album, and who knows, I might change it again when I get on the Astro Creep kick, man. Maybe I just enjoy both of those records equally. But out of the two, man, I think that this is definitely the better record. And the reason why I think Le Sexorcisto is the better record is because to me it's just more original. You know, when Astro Creep came out in '95, you know the band went more in the industrial metal route. And you know, at that time in '95, industrial metal was pretty much the trend. I mean, Marilyn Manson had blew up. You know, Nine Inch Nails was still going strong. Bands like Filter were coming out. It was pretty much the flavor of the day. But excuse me, but in '92, when Le Sexorcisto came out, you know, music was going through a change. The main focus was on alternative, and particularly grunge, Seattle grunge. That's where the main focus was. I mean, Nirvana had came out with Nevermind, you know, just a year prior, which also came out on Geffen Records, and it pretty much put all the attention on the Seattle music scene. You know, Soundgarden was blowing up, Alice in Chains, so many bands, and then other bands not even from that scene, but whose sound was modeled after that were getting so much attention. That's where a lot of heavy rock fans were going, because you know, it was said that metal was dead in the 90s, which that's not really true. It was more so a reaction against hair metal. I think hair metal had kind of died down, and I think a lot of people was kind of getting burnt out on thrash metal too, and so forth. People were looking for something else that was a little bit fresher and new. But you know, White Zombie was one of those bands that did that with this record, along with Pantera and a few other bands. But you know what White Zombie did with this record, man, they essentially created what I call a psychedelic groove metal record. Because, you know, it's groove, but it's not necessarily, when I say groove, you know, it's not like Pantera-ish groove. You know, Pantera Pantera took their groove a little bit more of the, like, thrash metal territory in some ways. Like, they kind of, yeah, Pantera like blurred the lines between groove and thrash metal in a lot of ways, man. And you know, of course, Phil Anselmo had more of a hardcore presence as a vocalist, but with White Zombie on the Sexorcisto, man, it wasn't just psychedelic, but it was also elements of funk. There was also elements of hip hop in some cases, and it was just a very unique groove where it was really hard to pigeonhole the band. Like, calling them just a groove metal band really doesn't give them justice at this point, because it's just really hard to pigeonhole them. And you know, at the time when this record came out, you know, White Zombie had the distinction of being one of the few bands to get played on both the 120 Minutes show and Headbangers Ball. You know, there were only a few other bands that did that. I know Ministry was one of them, and there may have been a few others that I can't name at this time. But White Zombie was in that category because they didn't sound like the typical metal band. They just had an edge to them that where they were able to appeal to a lot of different audiences, in my personal opinion, with this record. But the way that they just took metal and they blurred the lines with groove, as well as funk and hip hop, and even a little bit of stoner and sludge in some elements, man. I mean, it's just amazing. And there's so many elements of like that 60s dance rock element all through the record, because this is a very danceable record. You know, you can't help but want to dance when you listen to this record. And this is even before Rob started getting more into the industrial thing, man. Like, the rhythms on here, Ivan de Prume, like, his drumming on here is just amazing, man. His groove and the rolls that he does on a lot of them, and he's such a heavy hitter, man. Like, I've read so many people say where so many people have said that listening to this album inspired them to want to pick up the drums or made them a better drummer. Listen to Ivan. And, you know, that whole rhythm section with him and Sean. I mean, Sean is such a great bassist. That's another one of the highlights of this record, is that you can hear the bass pretty prominently on this record, man. Like, and her bass skills is just amazing. I mean, it's really funky how she gets down on a lot of those rhythms. And then Jay Younger, man. Jay Younger as a guitarist, you know, we saw what he did on the God of Thunder EP, man, but he definitely took it to the next level on here. And I was surprised in the interview when he said that he was always kind of white knuckling it when he first joined the band, because he never really saw himself as a lead guy. But his riffs and his solos on here are just amazing. So I was surprised to hear that, like, early on he wasn't very much confident in his skills as a lead guitar player. But Jay Younger needs more credit. Honestly, I think he's right up there with Dimebag Darrell and others. He's definitely an early pioneer of the groove metal sound, because, like I said, he joined the band, and that's when their sound really shifted, and they really got into their pocket, you know, with the God of Thunder EP. Because, like I said, that was one of the earliest groove metal releases prior to Pantera's Cowboys from Hell. But Jay Younger just needs more credit as a guitarist, because, like, his riffs just pack so much punch on here, man, and it's groovy. That's groovy. Groovy is just it's just what it is on this record, man. That groove is just what really lures you in. And Rob Zombie, you know, if you go back in the past and you listen to the early White Zombie stuff leading up to this, you can see the different transitions and phases that Rob went through as a vocalist. I mean, he's always had that B horror movie lyrical content, but, you know, the early White Zombie stuff, he sounded like a drunken maniac on a lot of that early stuff. Just go listen to their first full-length record, Soul Crusher. He sounds like a drunken maniac through most of that. But by the time you get to Make Them Die Slowly, he's starting to kind of find his niche. He's starting to kind of find his groove in that. But by the time you get to the Sexorcisto, he's hit it right on the nail. He's definitely found his voice and his vocal style. And Rob Zombie, we all know Rob Zombie is not someone that you would consider like a great vocalist. We're not going to look at him like the greatest vocalist of all time, but he knows what he can do, and he does it well on this record. He knows where he he's in his pocket on this record. I'm gonna be using that a lot. He's definitely in his pocket on this record, and he knows what he can do, and he does it well. And I actually enjoy his vocal performance on here. I read a few reviews on the album where people kind of had a little bit of dismissive stuff to say about his vocals on here, but I thought he did a great job. It was good. It was good to hear that where he started from and where he was at this point. And you know, to me, it just kind of set the stage for what he would later do with his solo career, man. But everything on this record is just so unique. I mean, everything from the cover art. I mean, the cover art, I dig the cover art. Although this isn't the original cover, it was supposed to have been something else. Like, I think the original cover was supposed to have been Rob. Like, they was all like out in the desert, and Rob is sitting on the throne, surrounded by skulls with the other members of the band around him. That didn't really work out that well. But I mean, look at the psychedelic nature of this cover. I mean, this cover just screams like 1960 something, like 1966 or whatever with that cover. And you know, it's just everything about this record. I mean, not just the music, but even the whole vibe of the album is just a positive energy, man. Because at this point, you know, White Zombie was still a band. You know, the dynamics of the band hadn't shifted, and it just feels like they just had such a great time recording this record. You can just feel that vibe and that energy throughout the whole record, man. It's just really a positive record in my opinion as far as that vibe, because you know, they were all together as a band. You know, things were more great at that point. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, it's no secret that Rob and Sean were a couple, and you know, when that relationship ended, that kind of started the decline of the band. But at this point, when the band was still together, him and her was still together, so the band dynamics were still good. It was still on a positive note, and you feel it throughout the record. And I just want to say that I think that this is the best lineup of White Zombie, and that's not to take anything away from John Tempesta, who joined the band later. Of course, he came after Phil Bristetti, who passed away almost 10 years ago now. But not to take anything away from John Tempesta, because John Tempesta is a great drummer. You know, he's been in Exodus and Testament and so many other bands. But I don't know. To me, I guess it's just, you know, these guys are more of a family, I guess, in a lot of ways, because, you know, all of these guys were kind of together during the struggle before the band really blew up. And you kind of, it just all meshes well together. And I don't know, Ivan de Prume's drumming is just, it's just amazing, man, because he's influenced by disco, funk, hip hop, and heavy metal. And he managed to take all of those influences and come up with his own style. He even said that, you know, when they were recording this record, they were heavily influenced by Public Enemy. And I can actually hear that in a lot of the rhythms of the songs. I could actually kind of take Rob out and kind of hear kind of like Chuck D's flow and delivery over a lot of these rhythms. But to get into some of the songs on the album, man, like, you know, Welcome to Planet MFer, man, / Psycho Slab, what a great opener. That was one of the first White Zombie songs I actually heard when I got into the band, when I first discovered them, man. And I always dug the rhythm, but I always liked Rob's vocal delivery on Welcome to Planet MFer, because the way that he flowed on that record, to me, it kind of felt like he was sort of quasi-rapping his vocals a little bit. That's what I always dug about that record. It was almost like he was flowing like a rapper in some respects on that song. And of course, you got the big hit Thunder Kiss 65, which is still one of their signature songs. I mean, Rob Zombie, he still performs that song live on his solo. We saw him, me and some friends saw him not too long ago, and that was one of the main songs they performed from White Zombie. Black Sunshine, another great one, featuring Iggy Pop narrating. I like the speed of that song. I like the tempo of it. It's kind of got like it definitely has that 60s vibe to it, that kind of surfer rock kind of vibe to it, but just heavier. But after Black Sunshine, my favorite part of the album starts with song number 5. I would say 5 through 8. Yeah, 5 through 8, man. That's my favorite part of the album, starting with Soul Crusher. Man, And Soul Crusher, I think, is one of the oldest tracks on this album. They actually wrote that song like back in '89, and there's actually live footage that you can find in them performing that song live, like 2 or 3 years before they even put out Le Sexorcisto. I seen a show that they did in '89 in Washington D.C. where they performed it, and it's pretty much the same song. There's a little difference between the early version than this one, but I really dig that song. I love the beginning rhythm, because the beginning rhythm kind of has this kind of pulsating, kind of disco kind of vibe to it, and then it switches gears and goes into this kind of like mid-tempo, like kind of sludgy groove that's really cool. But I also like the last part of the song where the rhythm switches up and it kind of goes into this kind of funky hip-hop type style. Cosmic Monsters Inc. is probably my favorite on this album, man. I can't get enough of that song. I don't know, I was listening to this at work the other day, man, and I just couldn't help but just headbang to it, man, because oh man, that groove is just so amazing. And Rob's performance, the way he performed the vocals on that song, man, it's just, man, I don't know, man, it's the one for me on this album, man. Cosmic Monsters. I like the ride to that song. It just has that slow, heavy groove to it, those punching riffs, like Rob's performance, and then like the rolls that Ivan de Prume does on the drums, man, he just kills it with that, man. Spider Baby, yeah, is another great one. I kind of like the first part of it, of the vocals. I can't really describe the tempo, but the tempo is just really cool. How Rob just comes in, he's just right on that rhythm. But then it switches like during the chorus to kind of like a kind of slow, doomy, sludgy type format. I Am Legend, one of the slowest songs on here. One of my favorite vocal performances from Rob. I like the way he goes, yeah, like that. I didn't do it as good as him, man, but I just like the way he does it when he begins each verse. It's just something about the way he does it. It's kind of creepy, but it's also kind of catchy too, the way he does it, man. And I'm trying to think. See, Thrust is another highlight on here. That's when it gets to the part of Thrust, when it gets to track number 10, I would say 10 through 13. The album kind of switches gears a little bit, and it kind of gets a little funky a little bit with the rhythm. And Thrust is one of the best examples of that. Grindhouse A Go Go, that's another one of my favorites on here. What I like about that is that rhythm. That's probably one of the few songs on here that I really say I could hear Public Enemy. I could hear the Public Enemy influence. I could definitely hear like Chuck D rapping over that rhythm, man. And also my favorite part of that song is when there's a breakdown part where a chorus comes in, a chant goes in, and everybody's like, go, 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 go. And I like that part so much because that's so hip hop. That's very hip hop. I don't know too many metal bands that were doing things like that with their sound. To me, that is very much a hip hop thing. That's something that you were hearing like in a 90s hip hop record. And then like Starface, Warp Asylum is actually the slowest song. I said I Am Legend, but I think Warp Asylum that ends off the record, that's one of the that's daggum near doomy. That song, that's probably the most psychedelic of it as well too. But just an all around great record, man. I just really enjoyed this record. And I know I was watching the review that Banger TV did on it. They did an Overkill on Earth review on this record, and one thing that Blaine Smith pointed out that I agree with was that, you know, White Zombie they really knew how to make heavy music catchy, because there's a catchiness to this record. It's heavy, and it's not really cheesy, but it's heavy, but it's catchy, you know. And they really know how to like sink the hooks in you and reel you in to their world. So I definitely agree with that, man. That this record, even though it's a heavy record, it's definitely catchy, and they know how to like just kind of just lure you into their world and just keep you there, man. Because just amazing music all around, man. One of my all-time favorite heavy metal records. I listen to this album repeatedly, You know, I can't even tell you the number of times that I spin this record on a daily basis. That's just how great it is. And like I said, White Zombie is one of my favorite bands. So I definitely have had a change of heart. You know, like for a long time I was saying Astro Creep 2000 was the better record and that it was my favorite, but I gotta go with Sexorcisto, man. It's just that this record, it's just more original. It just has more of a vibe that I dig. Cause by the time you get to Astro Creep 2000, you already know that they're not really much of a band anymore. That the band's pretty much on the decline, even though they managed to put out a great record with that. But to me, Sexorcisto is just, to me, I think this is the band's best work. Honestly, I don't think any other band has managed to do what White Zombie did on this record. I mean, maybe some have come close, but I just haven't heard any bands that have really done what they did as far as like taking all these different styles of funk and hip hop and groove and psychedelia and just blended it all with metal and just making one of the most interesting metal records ever out there, man. And not to mention the samples that are sprinkled throughout the record, whether it's in the interludes or on the songs. I don't know a lot of metal bands that were utilizing samples as much as White Zombie was doing. Like again, that's that hip hop influence coming back into play, man. But definitely one of the greatest heavy metal records of all time. One of my personal favorites, one that I can't get enough of. If you've never sat down or you've never listened to Sexorcisto, you never heard this record, definitely go check it out. Go on YouTube, stream it wherever. You definitely need to hear this, man. Especially for people who may not be familiar with White Zombie, but are more familiar with Rob Zombie's solo work. Here, this is an album. This is one of the earliest records right here that shows you that the precursor to Rob's solo career, basically, man. Like, just check it out, man. I prefer White Zombie a bit more than Rob's solo career. Even though I like Hellbilly Deluxe and Sinister Urge, but for me, White Zombie, Sexorcisto, and even Astro Creep, man, that's where it is for me, man. But definitely go check out this album if you've never heard it. One of the greatest heavy metal albums of all time. One of the greatest 90s metal albums of all time, man. So go check it out. It's not hard. You know, it's one of their biggest records. Check out the videos for Thunder Kiss 65, Black Sunshine. It's all on YouTube. But just a remarkable record right here. A metal masterpiece in my personal opinion, man. So that's it for this album review. White Zombie, Sexorcisto, Devil Music Volume 1. Hope you guys enjoyed that review. If you enjoyed this video, do me a huge favor. Hit that thumbs up. Give me a like because it helps with the algorithm. Also, be sure to hit the subscribe button and tap that bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop new content. Also, I want to thank everyone that's been taking the time to watch the videos, everyone who subscribed to the channel. I truly appreciate it. And as always, hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week, and love, peace, and music. Peace out, y'all.